G'day, or more properly, good evening from me. This is George on the 28th of June 2026, delivering you the Sunday's version of A Message of Hope. Well, I want to tell you about a good man. I've known him nearly 27 years. We go to the same church. He had permission from his boss to use a warehouse space yesterday, the weekend. You see, his wife runs a small side business and they needed the room. He was careful with what he was doing. He checked everything. He locked up properly, except almost. You see, the roller door was closing and there was a conduit in the way. He didn't catch it in time, so you can guess, the door jammed. So he made a weekend call out to a technician, and that was nearly $1,000 charged to his card before he even had the conversation with his boss. Hasn't told his boss yet. So 10 seconds of carelessness, $1,000 gone. And here's the detail that stayed with me. He and his wife has a young toddler. The first child, a really beautiful looking child. That $1,000 could have bought a lot of nappies. Like I said, he'll tell his boss tomorrow. The boss doesn't know yet how that conversation will land. Nobody plans for that kind of morning, does it? And that's precisely the point. Here's what I want to say before anything else. Financial pain is not a sign that you have failed. It's not evidence that God has abandoned you either. Pain is a feature of living in a fallen world, and it finds everyone eventually, me included. Every single person watching this has a version of that story. Or they will. Would you like to see evidence of that? Let me quote you one. Tom Panos is a real estate commentator. Now, let's just be upfront. I'm not a big fan of his, but he recently posted about a house in Roseville that sold for $6.4 million in 2021. Not a small sum, right? That same house, June the 15th this year, again, it was sold, unfortunately, for $5.6 million. I think it's unfortunately because it's $800,000 difference, gone, vanished. We don't know why they had to sell. Was it due to divorce? Perhaps a health crisis? Maybe a business failure? Nobody ever knows what it is coming until it arrives, and it can happen at the end of the market. Friends, it can happen anywhere. Here's what the Bible says about that. Proverbs 27, chapter 27, verse 12. The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it. And this is the Solomon wisdom, a principle drawn from a lifetime of watching how people actually live. Now, Solomon's not writing a financial planning manual, but the principle lands with full force. You see, the prudent person is not the one who avoids pain. They are the one who sees it coming and prepares before it arrives. Now, I want to voice something honestly before I suspect some of you are already thinking about. Does preparing for the worst mean you lack faith? Is an emergency fund just an anxiety dressed up in a spreadsheet? I'll let you decide that. Joseph didn't lack faith, did he? He built grain stores for 7 years because he trusted God's warning enough to act on it. Yes, the prudent person and the faithful person are not two different people. Prudent is faith with his boots on. So when the roller door jams, when the market turns, when the phone rings with news you weren't expecting, will you have something to stand on? Put down in a comment if you think you've got a tool for that. Now, before I answer that practically, I need to tell you something I'd rather not. Nearly a decade ago, a third party approached me with a lending opportunity. On face value, it looked reasonable that a caveat was lodged on the property. I lodged it. Well, someone lodged it on my behalf, which gave me a degree of security. So I said yes. What I found later is that in Queensland, a caveat only lasts 6 months. Rats, I said. After that, your interest in the property is totally gone, evaporated. Now, I didn't know that, and that's my fault, right? And I have to own this. The third party didn't do a credit check on the borrower, and I didn't own my own due diligence. So you can say we're both at fault. So without interest, I could have bought a decent second-hand car with that money a decade ago. I don't think I'll see it again. Of course that stings. It still stings. So what do you actually do with that kind of pain? Well, 3 things, and I want to be honest about each one of them. You can have an emergency fund, and that's a buffer between a crisis and a catastrophe. So what if it's not exciting, but it's completely necessary? And if the guy at the warehouse had one, that $1,000 was painful but survivable, right? Without one, painful becomes something else entirely. Now you can consider insurance. Don't mistake that as gambling. I've had that argument and I'll have it again. Because a responsible acknowledgement that the unexpected is not a remote possibility. It's a guarantee, and the only thing is timing. That's the question. And then there's prayer. This is where I want to stay. Because I still pray about that loan, not frantically, not obsessively, but whenever it comes back to my mind, I keep asking God whether He's teaching me about something, about due diligence, about difference between a deal that looks reasonable and a deal that actually is. I don't have a tidy answer for that. I haven't landed on a neat session with a bow on it. But I keep showing up the conversation, and something in that returning, not the resolution, just the returning, has quietly changed how I carry it. Friend, is prayer part of how you prepare, or only part of how you react? Because there's a version of the Christian life where God gets the panic call after the roller door jams and the caveat expires. And of course, the house sells for $800,000 less than you paid. He will take that call. He always does. But there is another version where you bring the uncertainty to Him before the crisis arrives. So where the emergency fund and insurance policy sit alongside a prayer life that doesn't wait for an emergency to start. And if you want to build the practical side, the emergency fund I'm talking about, the spending plan, the financial foundations, just reach out through the contact details in the channel description. Yeah. Money coaching. There's no obligation. I'd love to help you out build something that holds. Again, the roller door didn't announce itself. The Queensland caveat law didn't send me a reminder. And the Roseville vendor didn't see 2026 coming when they signed a contract in 2021. Pain finds everybody. And that has never been that question. So tomorrow that man walks into his boss's office not knowing exactly how that conversation will end. And I walked into a loss nearly a decade ago that I'm still carrying. Neither of us chose the moment. Neither of us could undo it once it arrived. But here's what I know. The prudent person doesn't wait for the damage to start preparing. They build a thing before the door jams, right? They lodge more than a caveat and they bring it to God before the crisis, not only after it. And when the pain arrives anyway, because it will, and they are not standing there alone. So my friends, and that's today's message of hope. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video and share it far and wide. I'll see you tomorrow.